Hi, this is Caitlin.
This is Gabri.
And welcome back to AvengeGirls and Friends.
We are back to start a new season. This time we are doing something a little crazy, maybe. We are going to be doing the Fast and Furious franchise, which I'm so excited about. Caitlin loves these movies, and she made me watch the first one like a year ago, maybe.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed it because I do actually like, classic action movies.
Yes.
I guess I would call them, but that's the only one I've seen. So this is going to be an adventure.
In my opinion, it's the worst one of all of them.
Maybe, and I liked it, so...
Yeah, I was going to say maybe the second one is worse. I actually have not seen the second one since I first saw it, where I've rewatched the others.
Okay.
So we'll find out, next month when we do the second movie. But right now we're doing the first film, which is just titled Fast and Furious. Came out in, when was it? 2001, I think?
Something like that, yes.
It's very clearly a 2001 movie. Like, it dates itself.
Oh, absolutely. The first time I heard any of the music and, looking at the women's clothing especially, I was like, yes, the early 2000s. An excellent era.
What a time it was. Yeah, this is just... And also, I feel... Not that it gets necessarily better with the rest of the movies, but just, to start this podcast off with, the treatment of women also feels very early 2000s action movie.
Oh, yes. To me. It is very much so.
Like, oh, yikes. They're props. But yeah, so I feel like we don't have to talk about that in depth because I'm sure, some of the other things or movies that we've covered, this is, the one topic that most people have, talked about in regards to the Fast and Furious franchise, how it's kind of sexist and misogynist in many ways. We know. We're aware. We don't approve of that, but
I'm
also,
sure there are other things to cover.
They're fun. They're fun movies. The Fam, for example.
The Fam is clearly... Caitlin's going to be the guide on these movies because she's seen them before. Yeah. So she's going to take the lead. But yeah, I get the feeling that is going to be the major point of discussion.
You can kind of see, in this movie, before even, Brian kind of wedges his way into the hashtag fam, that, Dom has, his crew. He has his actual sister. He has his, friends who all make up this quote-unquote, family. But it's the proto-fam. We're not quite there yet. We get to it in, I think, the fifth movie is when I would say it really becomes, fam, 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 fam. And
are they forged in fire in the fifth movie?
Kind of.
Okay.
This movie is, I think, I might be wrong. Please, people correct me if I'm wrong, but it's generally regarded as the best one, besides maybe, Tokyo Drift, which is the third one. It's really good. I could I don't know why, but I could spend ages just talking about each different movie and what's cool about each of them and the timeline, because I like the time they go back and forth with the what year it is, kind of for example, Tokyo Drift is the third movie, but at the end of that one, I won't spoil it, but you realize that it takes place after something else. It's so good. It's so good. I can't say too much because I want you to experience it, as we watch them.
Okay. I can't wait till we get to that then. Yeah. This will be a lot of fun.
I feel like there could be a machete order for these movies.
Ooh.
Is what I'm trying to get at.
Okay.
But, yeah. But cool. We will watch them in release order. So yeah, but this is the proto fam, and when Dom kind of makes it clear, or not Dom, oh my god, when Brian makes it clear to Dom that he's there for him, kind of, that's when it's the fam seeds is what I'll call them, maybe. And it gets more and more serious and more good, and it's people always talk about how what could the Fast and Furious franchise possibly do next? They're gonna go to the moon, you know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
They keep amping it up, but also it's the family gets more intense with each movie as well. So it's a win-win, to be honest. You get more action, but you get more I will fucking kill for you, man. And it's so good.
I have to wonder though, at one point do these cross over into the Sharknado territory in terms of the ludicrousness of the plot line? I'm just wondering. I can't wait though.
Yeah,
no lie, I love Sharknado. So
I think
I'm not saying this would be bad.
funny thing is that in my memory, it's almost seamless how they just like, so right now this movie, which is probably one of why like in my memory I like this movie so much, is because it's just literally about like car thieves and car racing, and Brian's a cop, right?
Yeah, cars go vroom.
Yeah, cars go vroom. But then you get like the eighth movie, and it's like they're jumping off cliffs, and they have like the cars are flying through the air, and they make a jump between buildings to the cars, and it's like.
And it's like a seamless transition. You like don't notice it's happening. It's like the frog being boiled alive in water.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. Okay. And it just makes perfect sense. And you're like, wait a minute, because then you think about like, yeah, Fast and Furious 8 and 9, and you're like, wait, Dom started out doing what? And now he's like a really rich like billionaire who like does heists. Like, what the fuck? Oh it's really good. Yeah. So we haven't really talked about this movie yet, but I'm like gushing about the series.
So what do you want to talk about first in terms of this movie?
Oh, man. Okay. You know what? Oh, man. Okay. So we already talked a little bit about like the fam bam, right? I want to talk about the sister in that whole thing. Because it kind of goes with the family. We can get back to that eventually. But I love her so much. The fact that
cute.
She is so cute. And she's like, I feel like the realest person in that movie. There's after Brian like goes back for Dom and like saves him, and it's like the beginning of #fam as we have discussed. Dom brings him back to like his house, and where they're like having a party. And she like is looking out the window, and she goes, "Oh shit!" Oh no! And realizes she's like in her pajamas, and her like hair is gross and not wearing any makeup. And I was like, "You are my favorite. I love you." I just think she's really cool, and I think and her role does get better, I think, in other movies as well, if that entices you at all.
I don't need to be enticed, but that's good to know. That's good to know. I will say she gets to have some of like the best like petty moments.
Oh yes. Yeah.
Especially when she's like, she asks who does she ask? Is it Vince?
I forget. See, okay, there's so many characters in this where I
can't keep track of who they are.
They're not in the rest of the movies. So.
I know Dom, Mia, Brian, who I just called Paul Walker.
Yeah,
like he's the only one who goes by his real name.
Struggle to call him Brian.
And then
Letty.
Yeah, Letty. Those are the only ones I know. Anyway,
four, you might say.
Yes, the core four. Anyway, my point is, Mia asks the one guy about that restaurant, and then immediately turns to Brian, and she's like, "All right, cool, you can take me there soon."
That is
it's like wow,
power move, Mia.
There were a lot of power moves.
Yeah.
Especially by women in this movie. I won't lie.
Yeah. Like as much as I guess we will talk about this a bit more. As much as like they use women as like props and sexualize them, they very rarely sexualize Letty and Mia, like the main two women, I would say.
Right.
They don't do that to them. So while it's still gross that they even like have the scantily clad women and
gratuitous lesbians.
Yes, exactly. It's like, do you have to? But at the same time, I'm glad that you have Mia and Letty, who, I mean, in many ways they are also kind of stereotypes, but as the films go on, I would argue, and even in this film, they hold their own against the boys. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Letty is a bit of a stereotype in that, like I think Mia says at one point, like, oh, you know, all she wanted to do was just, like, hang with the boys. So she's sort of the tomboy stereotype. And then she hit, 16, and suddenly Dom was interested right back in her. It's like, okay, we get it.
Yeah.
But I like that she's, like, this is going to sound weird, but, like a fully realized tomboy. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I think I do.
She sometimes I feel like we get tomboy, this is going to sound weird, again, tomboy narratives wherein at their core they just want to be like feminine sometimes, but they can't because they look a certain way or they act a certain way. Do you know what I'm talking about, kind of? Whereas you don't get that here. Letty is just fucking Letty here throughout the entire movie and all the other movies. And I appreciate that. And also Mia is while she's like the more feminine of the two, she's not like hyper feminized. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like
still,
I said,
it's still very just very casual like existence. I think they are, even though they're in like what I guess would be called very much like a straight man's world, they are like just themselves. I don't know how to articulate this.
I'm struggling.
They're not preoccupied with filling a gender role or gender presentation.
Yeah, I agree.
I guess is what I'm going for.
Yeah. Because like even with like Letty, like I said, like she's more seen as more quote unquote powerful because she races and she's like one of the guys, the tomboy. But even Mia like holds a certain power over all of the guys, and it's not like because she's one of the guys, and it's not even necessarily that she's like Dom's little sister, because she holds power over Dom in a way that's interesting. Like, Dom, get the fuck out there and make them stop
do something about this.
You think that he would have done anything without her ordering him around? Like, no.
No, we would have let them do this themselves.
Exactly. So, while I recognize that this is, you know, coming from a very sexist, misogynist, like movie bro culture, and it certainly is that way throughout a lot of these movies, I do appreciate that at least we have two characters who we can kind of make an argument that they're like, what's the word I'm looking for here? Not fully realized, because everyone here is like a really kind of a stereotype, but
complex.
Yeah, they're a bit more complex, like the rest of the like Dom and Brian, like Paul Walker. Now that I mentioned Brian and Paul Walker, do we want to talk about Brian Cop?
Let us talk about that. First, I would like to say regarding Paul Walker that the fact that he orders tuna sandwiches makes me really sad he's dead. Not just because we lost a great talent, but because that would have made him a perfect candidate for Too Much Tuna.
Too much tuna.
It is too much tuna for Brian O'Connor. But yes, we should talk about that, because I watched this movie with my brother. Ethan's sitting there. He's like, how do we go from this to fighting crime? And I was like, well, you don't know it yet, but Paul Walker is the cop, and he just shouts at the screen, pig!
Good for Ethan.
Good for Ethan. So that was my viewing experience. It was fantastic.
Oh, that's hilarious. I think the reveal is like so well done every time I watch this movie, because there's literally no hint at it. You know what I mean? Like, and maybe that makes it like a bad reveal because there's no real foreshadowing. Because I do like how it's revealed to Dom. That like kind of pulls at your heartstrings. But like maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I didn't pick up on some foreshadowing. But to the viewer, it's like he's pulled over, he's handcuffed, he's taken in, and you're like, what the hell's going on? And then they uncuff him, and he's like on familial speaking terms with all those people, right?
Right.
It's like, oh my god, this makes so much more sense. Like, because the movie just kind of drops you in. Yeah. And you're like, I don't really know what's going on. You just, it's a racing movie. Okay, there's people, there's cars. You don't really know why Brian is like motivated to win races, or why he's even racing to begin with. Mm-hmm. And then that kind of clears things up, and it's like, oh my god, it's because he's a fucking cop and he's working a case. That's why he feels so one-dimensional until this moment. That might be just my like understanding of it, because I've seen it so many times, and I just always think of that moment. So I would be interested to hear how you process that moment, or if you saw it coming.
I think that makes sense. I can't really say if I saw it coming, because I already knew this time. So I had already seen it. Do
you remember from last time?
Oh yeah, I remembered from last time.
Okay. No, I mean like the reveal. Like, do you remember what you felt like? Yeah.
No.
You're like, absolutely not.
Caitlin, you're asking me about something that happened a year ago. Last week is as distant to me as the burning of Rome.
Yeah.
Like
1 year ago in like our terms and quarantine terms is like a billion years. So I feel you.
So I have always known, we have always lived in the castle. But I think you are correct.
Very sensitive. No,
This
you're
is
good.
so bad. No, I don't. I wish I did remember, but I think maybe the fact that it's dropped in without any reveals might be the only way to go, because he's working undercover, and from that standpoint, if he did have anything, that slipped out, he'd be toast, So the fact that it shows up so suddenly kind of speaks more to the reality of the situation. And so he feels one note because he's playing a character himself.
Yeah. So. He is one note. That character is one note. Yeah. Because it's a cover.
So it makes sense to me.
Yeah. I like that, like, the framing of that.
Yeah.
That suddenly you're like, oh my God. I get you now. It's the little moments in this movie.
Right.
And then we mentioned briefly the other side of the twist is when, like, Dom finds out. And I do really like that too, because I think it's one of the only moments besides when, like, what's his name? Jesse is killed, which I always forget about that, by the way. I don't know why. I think maybe because he's only in this movie and then he dies.
Right.
There's 8 action-packed movies. But, like, the early 2000s movies always killed the young boy of the film. Anyways.
No, you're right, because Garrett Hedlund got killed in 4 Brothers.
Yes,
he was the youngest brother. You're correct.
Yeah. It's always the young boy, and it's always in, like, a shootout situation. And by always, I'm thinking of those exact 2 movies, so I'm not sure if it happens elsewhere, but...
I'm sure it does, though, because, listen, it's the beginning of a trend. 2 movies, come on.
Exactly. But anyways, I love that reveal when, he calls 911. He's like, oh, this is my badge number. Please send a helicopter. Someone's dying. And like the look on Dom's face.
It's like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, that's betrayal, baby.
And I also want to know how much of that is like disappointment in himself for not realizing, especially because like Vince told him, because Vince knew. He was like, this bitch is a cop and we should not be trusting him. And Dom's like, no, Brian's my bro, he wouldn't do that to me. It's like, whoops.
He's like, he's my fam already. And then suddenly it really is, these movies all come back to that, the fam vibe, like the found family or the friends, I guess, are family that you choose. And Dom at that point, even though they hadn't known each other for very long, had already chosen Paul Walker as his family.
Right.
And then, boom. It's very sad.
It ends up being okay.
And that racing scene at the end, very intense. I always forget that happens too. I always think that, like, when Jesse dies, that's, like, kind of the end. But no, you got that one last, that one last vroom vroom.
Like, you mean when they're on the highway with the semi heist?
No, that's the heist. But at the end, when Brian and Dom are racing, like, not purposely really, I forget why they're racing, but there's the train and Dom realizes, Brian realizes he can't make it and Dom goes through or whatever. But then it's boom, 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 and
yes.
Yeah. But then they agree, kind of like, for some reason they're like, oh, that was really, like, scary, but so we're gonna just, like, let each other go. For some reason.
True romance.
Mutual respect. Yeah. that whole thing. I always forget that takes place. I literally, even at this moment, after just having rewatched it, I'm like, why did they do that?
Who's to say? It's a car movie and we are gonna do whatever we want. Okay, the only reason I asked is because, and I wish I had written down the context for this moment, because I don't remember. So, Paul Walker's driving, Dom is in the passenger seat.
Yeah.
And, like, something about the way Dom said "smoke 'em" to Paul Walker, it made me very vividly envision some kind of, like, royalty AU with the two of them. I, like, don't know why, but it was just very in my head, and I was like, yes, Dom is, like, king or something, and Paul Walker is his, I don't know, like, bodyguard, knight, something like that. I need it in my life.
I would read this so hard. Oh my god. I don't know why, but something about the very phrasing of that, the Dom and Brian royalty AU, like, I would eat that up. Deserve. Give us the Fast and Furious royalty AU. Where is it?
Because, and it already works in the terms of, like, he's so, like, feared and respected in, like, these underground racing things that it makes sense. Like, it would, I think it would translate very well.
So royalty AU. I agree. If anything, you know, like, they could even film that. Like, when this is what we mean by, like, oh, Fast and Furious is gonna go to the moon next. Haha. No, they're gonna start doing AUs.
Dom's gonna become king. It's gonna be great. King of the Southwest. Or
we'll just go down
LA.
the line. Yeah, it'll be like royalty AU. It'll be coffee shop AU. Soulmate AU. We're gonna hit them all. That's the next thing that they're gonna do. Vin Diesel, if you're out there, you know, hit us up.
I think he would be into it. I mean, he does like Dungeons and Dragons, so I think he would agree with us.
Vin! Come on, please. We're here waiting. We have some really good ideas. I actually don't really have much else that I want to discuss besides the post-credit scene.
I have like a couple things.
Hell yeah.
So first, you know, there's that scene where Brian and Mia do go to dinner, and he asks how, like, the team came to be, how, like, the fam was found, as it were. But, like, they used that I got time kind of thing, and they had already used it earlier in the movie, and that made me really mad. I'm like, you can't use that twice in one movie. It's uncouth and lazy, and you can do better than this. Like, you just can't. I think this is literally the only movie I've ever heard that trope. Yeah. Trope? Is it a trope? The only time I've ever heard it used twice in one thing.
Yeah.
And I don't think it should be allowed.
Well, it's cheesy enough already, you know what I mean? Like, get more creative with your writing here. Yeah. Don't use that phrase.
But in terms of, like, slightly more creative, the intense scene on the highway when they're robbing the semi, I like that they never show the trucker, that it's always just, like, objects, object shots of, like, the him loading his weapon and everything. You never see his face because the whole operation is really anonymous, and, like, that doesn't actually matter. It's not like it's a personal vendetta or anything, and I think that's why they chose not to do that. It's about the cars
and about the cool like action scenes. I did have that thought where, so this entire movie is kind of like boring in comparison to the rest of the franchise, right? But that scene, it's like, ooh, this is what, you know, you have to look forward to if you keep watching our movies. Because soon enough, it's like all the movies are just that all the time. You know what I mean? Also, the fact that I just had this thought too. You know, in this movie, it's like all about like the nitrous oxide, or what do they call it? They call it something else maybe.
NOS.
But NOS. Yeah, thank you. It's all about the NOS, baby. And that's like seen as like the cool thing for cars.
Yeah.
And like it's like never mentioned in any of the like later movies. Because like it doesn't matter, right? Because like once you have like money and like more higher tech cars, it's about the magnetism and like the grappling hooks that can shoot from your car. It's not about the NOS.
It's so last year.
It's so 2001. So I really love that, like, it dates itself, and then it's like, and here's what's to come, maybe. It's
even
very good.
We don't know.
Yeah, who's to say? Before we finish up, I just want to talk about first of all, the fact that this movie has a post-credit scene. And wait, did this actually come out in 2001? Before I make this statement, give me a hot sec. Fast and Furious 1. Keep saying 2001, but it is 2001. Okay, it came out in 2001. I would argue that this is really like this accidentally was the first film or the first like movie franchise ever. Not ever, but like that did that, you know what I mean? Like 2001, that's before Marvel.
Yeah.
That's before Twilight, and not that they had post-credit scenes, but you know, before any of these like franchises really existed. And this had a post-credit scene. And it's a franchise.
Early.
This is the first franchise. I'm claiming it.
No, definitely, because the closest Star Wars comes to that is the Darth Vader breathing noises at the end of the Phantom Menace credits. So, like,
there you go. Yeah. Although, I guess we could maybe count that. It's kind of...
It's not a scene. It's an Easter egg.
Yeah.
That's as much as I would give that credit for.
So I'm taking it for Fast and the Furious. You're welcome, Vin.
Absolutely.
And then also, just a small aside, this has literally nothing to do with analyzing this movie, but the car, according to Wikipedia, and I've internalized this for years, but the car that Dom is driving in the after credit scene is a 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle SS, and it is one of my favorite cars. I always joke to my mom that, like, for some reason, I really like cars. Like, I've always loved cars. I used to watch Speed Racer. There was this anime called X Driver I also used to watch. I love these movies. There's a car in Death Note that I, like, obsessed over for forever. I guess these have anime origins all the time. But I love cars. But unfortunately, I am that John Mulaney joke where it's like, I meant to learn about cars.
And then
I forgot.
Yeah.
I know nothing about cars, but I just know that, for example, that 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle SS is one of the sexiest cars I've ever seen. And I love that he drives it in the end. It's such a nice car.
This is great.
Yeah, so it's a fun Kate fact, is that I know nothing about cars, but I think cars are really sexy. And that's probably why I like these movies, besides the found family. That's a big driving force, of course.
Number 1 and number 2.
Exactly. Found fam, cars hot. But I think that is it. I don't have anything else to add. This is a very simple movie in comparison.
Which I think is okay. We got to ease back into podcasting. We took a very slight break from it to start doing YouTube as well. So that's fine, I think.
Which, if you haven't seen it already, please go watch Gabri's Midnight Sun.
I talk about Fast and Furious in it.
Yeah, she does. And it's very good. And if you wanted to, like, know what's in Midnight Sun without actually having to read Midnight Sun, it's also a good option. I learned things.
You learned things? Excellent. Good. That's all I ever really wanted, you know?
Pomegranate lasagna is what I learned.
Pomegranate lasagna. You always say lasagna. It's ravioli.
I really?
You always call it lasagna. It's so funny.
For some reason, I don't know why. My brain just says lasagna. Okay, that's really funny. I don't know if I'll internalize it this time. I'll try to.
I kind of hope not.
It'll be like my idioms. I just will never learn. Okay, so I think we discussed this last time, is that we're going to a, like, monthly podcast release schedule instead of bi-weekly, because we are both very busy. I am going to be taking, like, 4 grad school classes in the fall, and I'm going to probably die. But I can handle 1 podcast a month. So we're going to scale it back for a little bit. And the other, instead of having 2 podcasts a month, we're having 1 podcast. And the other will be a video, in theory. If you have suggestions for anything you want to see on our YouTube channel, let us know. We will try our best to accommodate. Otherwise, you're going to be getting really weird videos.
I would like to do more reading vlogs personally. So if there's a book you would like me to read, that would be cool. I do want to do Queen's Peril at some point, which is one of the Padme books by E.K. Johnston. But, you know, anything else too. As long as it's not too long, because when I read books, I like to read them in one day. So I won't do Game of Thrones. Like, I will not do that because I do not think I could do that in one day.
That's fair. So no, Game of Thrones is off the table, but anything else probably besides, like, Les Mis and War and Peace.
I'd also like to keep it to, like, series things. Like, I want to keep it having the tie-in to the podcast and keep it within, like, certain franchises for the most part, if at all possible. So that'd be rad. We're looking forward to a fall full of content.
Again, if you have any suggestions, let us know. But until next time,
thanks for listening, and AvengeGirls out.